Do you want to buy a piece of farmland to make a vegetable garden or for your farm? What are the things you absolutely need to look out for so you don't get ripped off? Today I'll tell you all about them. Hello to all the farmers, I hope you're all well. Today, a hot topic, I want to buy a piece of land. What should I look for? If you don't know me, I'm Matt the Farmer. For more than 13 years, I've been sharing how I built my farm in Franciacorta and how I work the land every day. My farm has two main focuses. We produce excellent wine. After all, we're in Franciacorta, and we grow different vegetables that we supply to Michelin-starred chefs and to the people here in the village. I grow different varieties, on average about 80 different types of vegetables each year, and we try to build everything from scratch. Why did I start from scratch? I started my farm without a penny. If you don't know me yet, subscribe to the channel. If you're already part of the community, remember our goal is to reach 500,000 subscribers on YouTube by year end, so subscribe now. Now, to put it simply, farmland is land used for agricultural activities. Now, it seems so obvious, but basically you have two types of land. Buildable land, where you can build a house, a business, or whatever you want. And then there are agricultural lands, which are specifically designated for agricultural activities. Keep in mind, though, that in Italy, there are a lot of restrictions. You need to check right away what is allowed and what isn't. There are some areas that are protected, so there are safeguards in place. That means you can do certain agricultural activities and not others. On the other hand, there are lands that are strictly agricultural, so generally, you might have a bit more freedom for what you want to do. When we go to buy a piece of land, keep in mind that the first thing you need to check is the water. I know that many people say, well, I'll just bring the water, I'll use tanks, I'll make small ponds and so on. It's not always that easy. When you go to store water, keep in mind that you have to collect the water and then go and cultivate a garden or whatever else you want to grow, which still requires large amounts of water. Let me add a quick note here as well. The water used in agriculture is not wasted water that we just throw into the ground, as is often claimed in some articles. It's water that we give back to the earth. In fact, we are not only watering our crops, but we're also providing water to the surrounding environment, to insects, plants, and everything around us. So I'm already telling you the main thing. You need to be concerned about acquiring the water first. To get water, you generally have three options. Either you have a water authority that supplies the water. Keep in mind that if there's a consortium, you'll have to pay a fixed annual fee. And there will be certain times during the week or the day when you can draw that water. If it's a river that runs nearby, be careful, because you can't just take water whenever you want. Even in that case, there are water authorities that regulate all of this. Now I'm simplifying it. Of course, the topic needs to be explored further later. You can go and dig a well. Digging wells isn't always that easy for three reasons. The first is that there's no guarantee that there is water under your land, or rather, there's no guarantee that there is water at a certain depth in a certain quantity. Second thing, to dig a well, you need the consortium's permission, because if the consortium is involved, meaning if the land is supplied with water, you need the water authority's permission, and water authorities generally won't let you dig the well, so they don't give you the go-ahead. And the third step, it requires, let's say, the green light from the authorities. And even there, the authorities generally don't allow wells to be dug. It's easier to dig agricultural wells than domestic wells, because generally for agriculture, yes, there are much more specific regulations, but water use is permitted. For domestic wells, it's not always that easy. As you can see, the third option is to store the water. I've already told you that it's just a hypothesis and it's not a great one, in the sense that you would need containers that can hold a lot of water. Keep in mind that to grow vegetables on about 1,000 square meters, during the hottest periods you might need up to 78,000 liters per day, so you need to estimate exactly how much water you need. And anyway, if you want to make a pond or collect water, even in that case, you need approval from the municipality, which has very clear regulations for building ponds. You're moving earth, you're shifting soil, changing the appearance of the land, so in that case, you still need approval from the municipality. Another necessity, of course, if you have water, you need electricity, because electricity is what allows you to operate the pumps to move the water and irrigate wherever you want. It's true that with the irrigation consortia, you could use the tractor and pump, but at that moment, you either apply it right away. This, let's say, is usually done with corn or with large-scale field crops, or if you're growing vegetables. It's very difficult to go and draw water with a tractor with low pressure and then go and apply it to your fields. As you can see, water is a fundamental issue. Usually the cheapest lands are the ones on the hills, where access to water is really difficult. Moreover, when it's hotter, that's when you need more water. So even if you store water, even if you make a pond, in any circumstance, keep in mind that in June, when evaporation is at its highest and levels are usually lower, you need a lot of water. As you may have noticed, I've already mentioned the municipalities several times. Unfortunately, municipalities are usually the biggest problem when it comes to buying land, or rather, not so much buying the land itself, but for what you want to do on your land. There are some municipalities that work very well, that have understood that an area's strength lies in agriculture, because agriculture isn't just production, it's about managing the land. Wherever there's a farmer or an enthusiast with a piece of land, it's not abandoned land, so it's not land where waste is usually dumped. The ditches are maintained and the whole area is managed. Sadly, only a few municipalities help with this. As I said, want to dig a well? You have to go through the municipality. Want water storage? The municipality. Want to do anything at all? The municipality. I'll give you a practical example. It happened to me when I wanted to fence my land, mainly to keep animals away from the vegetables, but also to give the land a bit of order. Because people would come to steal my vegetables, they would come to dump trash, basically a lot of things, a normal thing, just fencing your own property. I had problems with the municipality because the technician told me I couldn't put up a fence, and the answer was, if you wanted to start a farm, you should have chosen another piece of land. So I pointed out to them that the land was agricultural, but what agricultural land actually allows you to do isn't always clear to everyone. I'm telling you this because if you're going to buy a piece of land, you need to first consider what costs you'll have and what benefits that land will bring you. Because sometimes a piece of land that costs a little more but already has electricity and water is much more worthwhile than a piece of land that costs less. It doesn't have access to running water, so it costs you 3 times as much to bring in water and electricity. Anyway, to wrap up the topic of fencing the land, I should mention that I made a series of videos explaining how you can legally fence the land. Here too, you need to know all the steps. Anyway, it's in the description, so you can go check it out. And part of what I do is to explain how I do things legally, precisely to help you both with digging a well and with building a fence or fencing your land. So, to sum up, we started with the idea of buying a piece of agricultural land. And we're already running into a series of difficulties, or rather, a series of characteristics that your agricultural land needs to have. Keep in mind that the topic changes slightly depending on the size as well. Of land you want to buy. If you want to buy a single piece, so a single block, maybe 30 or 40 hectares of land, of course, don't even think about fencing it off, because that would cost an infinite amount. You will be doing certain agricultural activities, and if you buy 1,000, 2,000 or 3,000 square meters of land, you will have other problems and also different needs. Keep in mind that besides the land, there are taxes you have to pay to the authorities. If you buy agricultural land, it's 15%. If you buy it as a farmer, it's 5%. It's an incentive for farmers to be able to buy more and more land, so it discourages people from buying land and just keeping it as a mere investment. Let's make a quick aside about hillside land. Besides having the problem of water and figuring out how we can store water, they also have the problem of being on a hill. So how do we cultivate it, and what kind of access does the land have? That's a very important point. With machinery, we need to rebuild terraces. We need to rebuild dry stone walls. And above all, we need to consider how much actual cultivable space we can work with. Even there, to move the soil, rebuild the terraces, or do any kind of work, we need to ask the municipality for a permit. It's not a strict rule, but I've seen that it's almost always the case. Almost all the land in the hills is almost always in a protected area or in a conservation zone, so there's an extra complication for any actions you want to take. Now, with this, I don't want to discourage anyone from buying land, but you can understand that buying a house or a piece of land is very similar. Just like when we buy a house, we have to look at the situation from every angle, understand what's there and what's not, whether they'll give me the permits, if I can move a wall or not. With agricultural land, we don't have walls to move, but we have very similar issues. So what should we do when we're looking? The first thing I recommend is to start focusing on an area, a zone where you would like to have the land. This area could be one that's with access to water, or it could be an area close to your home. Having land maybe 3 hours away might not be the best solution, especially when you want to take care of certain crops or maybe much more simply chickens that you want to keep on your land. Once you've identified this area, it's a good idea to go on the usual websites and get an idea of the average price of land. Now, it's true that there are estimates of how much a square meter of land costs. I'm in Franciacorta, so prices here are much higher compared to southern or central Italy. Keep in mind that there's no fixed price. The price of a piece of land changes depending on things like access, whether there's a road or if there's an easement. What is an easement? It's a road that belongs to you, but other owners have access to it to reach their property. In this case, it's a road that you have to maintain. It's also true that those who use that road do so legally, but that doesn't mean everyone can use it to go for walks. The person who has the right to the easement must also help you with the cost of maintaining the road. The best solution is, when you see a piece of land, to go and talk to the neighbors first, understand what kind of agreement can be made, and try to manage the land together. It's pointless to take care of the 10 meters of ditch for water drainage that are our responsibility if the neighbor doesn't clean their part afterwards, and so the whole path for draining excess water gets blocked. We found the area and we got an idea of the cost of agricultural land in that area. What I suggest is to start taking the car, the bicycle, whatever you want, and begin looking around at plots of land. Go and see which plots of land might be abandoned and try to find the owners. Usually it's people of a certain age or people who aren't interested, because if the land is abandoned, generally they're neither renting it out nor interested in it, so go and make them an offer. From experience, these are the plots of land that cost a little less, so they're much more affordable. Buying agricultural land is always an excellent investment. I know I said earlier that agricultural businesses are encouraged, but even for a private individual, it's a great investment. The farmer's saying goes, the wife leaves, the house falls, but the land remains. What does it mean? That even in the worst case, like, I don't know, an earthquake that splits the ground or a volcano that burns everything, even if everything catches fire, the land doesn't lose value, it doesn't depreciate. Of course, if they find radioactive waste under the land, in that case the land does lose value, but I'd say that's a pretty extreme situation. But precisely because of this, since we don't know what's under the ground before buying, it's a good idea to do some soil sampling, spend 200 or 250 euros and have the land analyzed. Another thing, before you go ahead and do the tests, also because the owner has to agree to let you do them. And they still cost money, so if you've picked out 5 plots of land, throwing away 1,000 euros like that isn't the ideal solution. You can go to the municipality's website. Almost all municipalities have historical aerial photos. What does that mean? It means you can map out, more or less from the 1970s to today, and understand what has been on the land. Did they grow vines there? Has it always been abandoned? There was a forest, there was corn, there was I don't know what else, but you can know all that at virtually no cost because this data is usually accessible. Also there, by checking the municipality's website, you can look at the PGT, the Municipal Land Use Plan, where it shows how the municipality envisions things and what the municipality allows for a certain area, which usually isn't just your land, but it's an area that includes your land. Now I repeat, this is a video that doesn't go into detail. If you want, we can do that, but usually to better look at this data and understand it, you need a consultant, a surveyor who can give you guidance. Here too, when you have identified the plot and you know what you want to do, etc., unfortunately, my advice is not to go ask for information at the municipality. Sometimes when you go to the municipality to ask for information, they get alarmed, they become inflexible, and they say no to everything. It's good to have a surveyor or someone who knows what they're doing and knows how to figure things out. The surveyor is an architect, right? How do you manage a piece of land? He can read the data better and give you some guidance. And you should go to the municipality with a very specific request. In my experience, when you go to the municipality and ask what you can do, usually the answer is always very, very negative and especially very alarmist. What do you want to do in my municipality? I know this is a contradiction and I partly understand the municipality. Unfortunately, that's what's happened over the last 40 years. The way they built, abandoned and managed the land, it has led the municipalities to be very, very reluctant and very, very nervous when you go to make a request. And today we are paying the consequences of this rigidity. With this, I'm not telling you to be sneaky or to do any building code violations. I'm just telling you to be very informed and a bit more careful and smart about what you ask for and how you ask for it. Because be careful, on a bureaucratic level, asking for one thing or another changes things. If you ask for a fence or a gate, if you ask for a fence to keep wild animals out, that's a different procedure. Afterwards, basically, I know that visually it looks the same to you, but they are two different procedures, so you risk getting a negative response when actually another solution could work for you just as well. It's a very, very general video. I just gave you some advice. I'd say I just gave you a 360-degree overview. Now we should be able to go deeper into these videos with various topics, maybe getting a bit more specific and precise. This is where you come in. Write to me below in the comments. What would you like me to go into more detail about? It will be my job later to put together the main questions, the main points. Here too, comments and likes help me understand which direction to take, and we'll try to go deeper into the topics. To always give you more targeted information and not make you waste effort or time. I see that when you buy a piece of land, even with the best intentions, you're not used to looking for certain terminology or regulations. It's the hardest part to do because you start with enthusiasm, everyone holds you back, and so you give up. So if you like the video, give it a like and comment below about what you want to see next. I remind you that by the end of the year, we've set the goal of reaching 500,000 subscribers. So subscribe to the Matt the Farmer channel and I'll see you in the next video. Bye everyone.